Hello, hello, hello. Good morning if you're joining us from India. A very good morning if you're joining us from anywhere around South Africa, because I know it's early morning, and good day to everybody joining from the other parts of the world. Here we are on the Outside View Live, powered by Vespa and Aprilia. We are going to build up to the second India versus South Africa ODI. But before that, a short visual about the SXR 160.
You're late.
Don't just live life, maxify it.
Right, welcome back to the Outside View Live, powered by Vespa and Aprilia. Lots of panelists here today with me. Boria Majumdar, former South African batter Claire Cowan, and also former India player Mamatha Maben. But before we get down to the match, Boria, first up, coming to you. You've been meeting Saurav Ganguly regularly, and you have some news for us. What is that about?
See, you have already, yes, I did meet Saurav yesterday, and you have already heard the BCCI secretary, rather, you've seen his tweet about the test match versus England, possibly the test match versus England. Now, that is confirmed, and I'm delighted that I think the test match will happen, from what I know, before the ODI series. So they will go to England around the same time as the men. So after the women's T20 challenge, they will travel to England, and then they will play the test match, which will now be part of future calendars as well. And then they will be playing a series of white ball games. I think the first game, if I remember from memory, from what Saurabh told me, was 27th June. And then there is a series of games. I've also been told that there will be no further gap. So the white ball tour finishes, then there will be another tour, and Sri Lanka, etc., and then Australia, New Zealand towards the latter part of this year, leading into the World Cup, so that our women get as much match time, game time, and lead up as possible. And the BCCI is equally invested. You know, as I had said this to Yash in a conversation, I think around January on your platform, that test match cricket will be conducted by the board. So I'm delighted that they have done that. More game time for our women is absolutely essential.
Delightful news to kick off the day, and I hope that's the start of things to come, because the news from the center, as far as the India-South Africa series is concerned, the second ODI, is that India have won the toss and have chosen to bowl first. We'll come to Claire. Lots of positive for South Africa in the first ODI, but I want to ask you about this particular aspect, Sune Lee's captaincy, because that was the center of focus in the lead up to this series, during the series against Pakistan. So how did you feel Sune Lee's fared in the first ODI?
Well, I think in one of the build-up shows, we discussed her captaincy at length. And, in the Pakistan series, we were a little bit critical of her at times. I think it was more just the lack of confidence that she showed at times. Danae van Niekerk is a phenomenal captain, and everyone backs her. And I mean, she's got huge sort of, I don't even want to say shoes to fill. She's got huge boots to fill. I was really happy with her captaincy. I think she stepped up to the plate. That confidence was definitely there. It was just like she's taken it to a new level in terms of her confidence on the pitch. And I thought she was really clever with the bowlers at times. You could see the Indian batsmen got into quite a sort of a comfortable situation. They were able to manipulate the field. Some of those shots that the Indian players played were, I mean, I got goosebumps watching, really. I watched the aftermatch show, and I think South Africa are going to have to step it up. India are there. They are scratching at the surface. And there's some really, really exciting things to come from India as a team. If that is what they could produce from a first sort of game after not playing since November 2019, I think there is some incredible talent coming to the fore. And it's almost a case of they just need to get a good couple of matches under their belt. So I think it's phenomenal to hear that literally for the rest of the year, those girls are going to be super busy, because that's what they need. They need match time. They need exposure, because it really looked good. But going back to Sine, I thought she did well. I love what she did with Shubnam. I was a bit concerned about Shibs in the first few overs. I was like, oh, like she just didn't look like she'd sort of woken up on the right side of the bed. Just wasn't really looking confident. And then she changed ends, and that was a really good sort of move from Sine's side. So, small things like that, I think she was really good. I was very happy to see that she bowled herself for 5 overs. We've discussed that at length, and she has to see herself as an important cog within that bowling setup. Yes, she's a leggy. She is going to give you the odd sort of short delivery, or as we saw at times, the odd over pitch delivery. That's just going to happen, and she has to sort of accept that and move on. But she picked up the wicket. Her economy rate wasn't over the top. She didn't let the sort of game get away from her. So I was really, really encouraged. Some very good early signs from her as a captain to start this Indian series.
Yeah, fair call. Mamatha, coming to you, Monika Patel is someone you've watched from close quarters. She made her debut in the first ODI for India, left-arm seamer. 4 overs, 1 maiden, 20 runs is what her bowling figure said. But that one maiden told us a lot about her. How did you think that she fared in the first ODI?
Actually, given that it's the first ODI and that she's catapulted directly from a Ranji level to India level, I think it was pretty okay. But I personally would have loved to see her in the challengers and grill there a little bit. But I'm very confident that she's got loads of potential. And under Julan's tutelage or under her wings, if she can really pick up and learn and bridge that gap, I think it'll do wonders for the Indian women's team, because the speciality of a left-arm pacer is something I think that she brings to the table. She's raw, but she needs to be tuned. Yesterday, her line varied, That is where she needs to work a little bit more. Her length is pretty okay, but the line, if she can zoom in on a good line, I think that will be very helpful for us.
Yeah, good point. That Boria, coming to you, the results might not have gone India's way in the first ODI, but lots of positives to take from. What are the positives that you think, apart from, of course, Mithali Raj was tremendous, terrific, but your thoughts about India's positives from the first ODI?
See, the first positive, as we've already heard, is you mentioned Mithali. I thought Harman was excellent in that innings. I mean, she gave us momentum. It was a runner ball 40. Had that been converted, and you are talking about a team that is playing ODI cricket after 15 months. I mean, none of these players are robots. To be able to produce that level of they were 125 for 4 when Deepti and Mithali was going, right? So one partnership, had it continued and kicked on, we would have gotten to 225, and 225 would have been very different, because then the bowlers would have put aggressive fields and pressure would have been built on Lee and Laura Gulfar. So that is where I think we sort of faltered a bit. I think South Africa goes in unchanged from what I was just checking the teams. There are plenty of positives for India. Mithali will have taken enormous confidence from the fact that she got the 50 as captain, because leading into the World Cup, you would need her in a good space, and individual performances also rub off on captaincy. If you're not scoring, it will play on your mind. So there are plenty of good. Deepti Sharma looked good in the 27. Harmanpreet Kaur looked good. Smriti Mandhana initially very, very good. Poonam Raut got a 10. So all of these 5 girls got starts. To convert, different story. Today they've won the toss also. Expect early wickets from Julan and things can change.
Yeah, fair assessment there. Claire, coming to you, South Africa are unchanged. They will expectedly open with Lizel Lee and Laura Wolford, but it's a different game in front of the openers today. They're not chasing a target. They're not chasing a small target. They have to set the tone. Additional pressure, you think, on the South African opener?
Oh, absolutely, hugely so. I mean, I think the first ODI has been summed up perfectly. India were slightly short of runs. With those extra runs, I definitely think the openers would have struggled a lot more. The confidence would have been with the Indian bowlers, and I just think it's a superb summary of the game. And that's why I said earlier, South Africa are going to have to step it up, because India, I would probably imagine, are going to be almost 25 to 30% better today than they were on Sunday. And South Africa are going to have to acknowledge that. They cannot now rest on their laurels. They need to understand that they need to bring it through to India. So I think it's quite interesting. I quite like the fact that South Africa are into bat. So it's a case of now they need to stamp their authority. So yes, South Africa tails will be up. They've got the first win under the belt, and then it sort of, I would like to see them being very busy at the crease. Maybe Zhou Li needs to be, I don't want to say overly attacking, because she's naturally such an attacking batsman. And if I'm overly critical of her at any one stage, is that she just actually needs to take an extra 10 or 15 balls at the beginning of her innings to get more settled at the crease. She's such an attacking batsman naturally. She doesn't have to go from the word go. It's not like, she doesn't have the ability to put the foot on the proverbial gas. She really can do that at any stage, but rather let her get settled, get comfortable, and seeing the ball and being able to manipulate the fields before she really goes in for those big shots. So I would like to see South Africa sort of take the game to the Indians, especially in the sort of the first 10, 15 overs, but at the same time being respectful and understanding their game. So South Africa don't want to be now sort of 3 down or 4 down within 15 overs. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about sort of 4 runs and over, manipulating the field nice and easy, and sort of getting confidence from that. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I'm glad to see that the team is unchanged. I think that's exactly how it should be. And we were kind of saying in the sort of the pre-series build-up that South Africa have an opportunity to go sort of 2-0 up in the series. And that, I think, is what they really need to try and do in the second ODI, because India are there. They're not far off. And I thought their top 6 looked really, really good. Smriti Mandana, those 3-4s that she hit were just spectacular. And I sort of went, here we go. And we've had discussions how I'm always biased to an opening bat. And so I really liked her coming out with that confidence. I thought she looked fantastic. And yeah, I mean, the top 6, I don't think we're far away from sort of, I would almost want to say 3 or 4 50s or sort of, 2 or 3 big 80s or something like that. I mean, that Indian top 6 is a fantastic batting lineup. And South Africa, I think, in order to put pressure on India in the second ODI, are going to need to get at least sort of that 230. I almost want to say 230, 240. 220, they'll probably be happy with, but they really need to push it and really put the pressure back on the Indians.
Yeah, interesting call there. But what is more interesting is India's change. They made one change to their 11 that played the first ODI. The debutant of the first game, Monika Patel, is out. Mansi Joshi comes in. What do you read of this, Mamatha? A seamer for seamer, but left arm seamer goes out, right arm seamer comes in. Your call?
Yeah. What I felt was Mithali is in a hard place. Like in the previous game, it was a smallish total. Ideally, she would have liked to open with 2 experienced players so that you don't let get them run away with the game early on. But she was unable to do that because she was on display or whatever. They've taken her for certain reasons, and the inexperience kind of showed. So I think that being 1-0 down, they would like to plug that gap and go in with two people who are experienced enough to start. I think that may have been the only concern rather than anything else, that we go in with 2 people who are experienced enough to keep them under the lid initially.
Yeah, good call that, Boria. You think it's fair? Because I think personally, I was surprised to see Monika Patel debut in the first ODI itself. I thought Mansi Joshi might get a go ahead of her. But now that there's been a quick switch, is it to do something with the fact that India is 0-1 down?
Yeah, I think that is the reason. I mean, you just said it. Had it been 1-0, obviously you would have continued. But if you lose one more, and it's and you're almost sort of like, one more game and we lose the series. So you've got to get it back. So you've gone for experience, and you want early wickets. So clearly the 169 partnership is haunting them, and at the same time the pressure of winning a game at home, trying to kickstart the campaign, is also haunting them. If you really ask, can you judge one player by one game? No, you can't. So in that sense, it's perhaps not the best call. But you can understand. You can understand that this is international cricket. Winning is everything in a sense. You want momentum. So I can understand why the call has been taken.
Yeah, fair thoughts that. We'll come back to the game in a bit, but look at the date today. It's 9th March. Yesterday was the International Women's Day, and we at Women's Cricket Zone launched the 4th edition of our magazine, the Women's Cricket Zone magazine. You can download the copy by heading on to our site, womenscrickzone.com. And as part of the India versus South Africa series, we'll be celebrating some of India's former players. Mamatha Maben is here with us today. July of 1993, 1993, Mamatha. How fresh is that month, that day in your mind? Because it was your maiden game for India. Who did you receive the cap from? What was all that about?
Unfortunately, like Nushin mentioned yesterday, we didn't have that routine of, or that legacy of somebody handing over a cap. Along with our team kit and all those things, we had received the cap. So that was about it. I don't have any special memory of somebody personally handing it. I think later when Anjum came, she started that trend. But we should do it within the, when we got our thing, within the dressing room or thing. But earlier to that, that trend was not there. So unfortunately, I don't have that memory. But it was a very pleasant memory in that until then, it was star-studded with Shanta, Shubhangi, Sudha. And to break into that squad for that tour was special. How I was a little amateurish then. I don't remember every aspect of that tour, that World Cup that we played. But it was very special in that I was just excited to be in the Indian squad, which earlier had people like Shanta, Diana, Shubhangi, Kulkarni, Sudasha. So that was the first feeling I had when we played that tournament.
And what was the lead up to the call up itself? How did you first of all hear from it? Because we've heard tales of players listening to their name announced on the radio transistor that we used to have back then.
No, I think the secretary announced it. I'm not very clear about that, but I think they announced it. Those days they used to verbally announce it before it went to the media and things like that. So I think the secretary then announced it. I kind of had whiff of it that I would be there because by then I'd broken into the Indian Railways, which was again a star-studded side, and I had a good tour that domestic season. So I was kind of, expecting, but it was announced verbally by the secretary.
Yeah, we heard Nushin say that she did not lose sleep on the eve of her debut. What was it with you? Were you
similarly? I think later on, when I was leading the country, the pressure was kind of different. But in that first show, we knew we were all there in a supporting cast because still Diana was leading. There was Sandhya Agarwal, Shashi Gupta, Rajni Venugopal, all the likes. So I think the first tour, we used to sleep well, we used to eat well, and we tried to go out there and give our best for whatever we had. So the first tour was very pleasant in those terms.
Yeah, Claire, all this sounds relatable, or was it a bit different in during your the phase when you were starting out?
No, I mean it sounds relatively sort of similar. I think we also used to sort of get the telephone call from the selectors and all that sort of thing to inform us. And I do agree. I think when you make your sort of break in and you come into the squad or the team for a tour, I think the excitement that you're in takes up the space for the nervousness. It's only kind of later on when the pressure really starts to build, or you're kind of seen as a core member of a particular batting lineup or even a bowling lineup. I mean, I can remember some conversations with some of the bowlers. That's when the nerves really, really kick in. I think in the beginning you're sort of like, yeah, cool, I've done this, and finally you can make the step up to the next level. And then it's later on that you sort of go, oh wow, now I'm really here. Now now we have to start producing and really thinking about how we can build our careers and how we can have an impact on this fantastic game that we all have.
Yeah, fair point. Let's come back to the match. Second ODI, India versus South Africa. India are bowling first after winning the toss. Boria, we saw India try out spin in the first 10 overs. Deepti Sharma came on. So you think similar tactics will be followed, or what's your first take at this point?
See, they will want early wickets. Make no mistake, and that is possibly what is going to decide this game. they will need early wickets, and I'm expecting early wickets. It is not going to be so for Jhulan and Mansi Joshi. It will be important to pick wickets. If you do not get one in 5-6 overs, then you will see a change, because fact of the matter is Mithali will want to break that partnership. Once again, an important partnership can dent them. So it all depends on how India starts.
Mamatha, we all watched the first match from our screens. We weren't close to the venue, but from what you saw, are you surprised that India have chosen to bowl than bat, or is it?
Not really. I think somehow, being in the setup now for some time, they have greater belief while they're chasing. While they're chasing than when they're setting a target. This is somehow there in their brain. So that is one thing. Second, I feel they fancy their batsmen more than their bowlers, so they may have taken this call that, if they can restrict them to below 220, I think India will be able to do this. Anything beyond that to 240 or 250, we'll have to really play well. But I think, like Claire said, the top 6 is really, top-notch cricketers. So anything 220 below, I think India should be able to do it. And I think they're pinning their hopes more on their batter than the bowlers, and that may be the call why they chose to chase a target down.
Yeah, Claire, we saw South Africa lose 2 quick wickets in that easy run chase in the first ODI. Will that play on their mind? Soon Elise, of course, said that her wicket was one of the blips in the first ODI for South Africa. So they're batting first today. You expect Lara Goodall to come at 4, and Soon Elise confidence. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I don't think they'll change the batting lineup. I think Soon Elise is in an awkward position when you're coming in at number 3, and they only had to get, I think it was 8 or 9 runs at that moment. So you're kind of in almost a no-win situation, because you're either going to go out or you're going to get a few runs, and you haven't really sort of got anything out of it. There's no time in the middle or anything like that. So, yeah, obviously it's not great for her to go out and yes, a 9-wicket win over an 8-wicket win always does sound better, but I don't think that they'll tamper with this batting lineup. And I think it's an incredible opportunity for this batting lineup, to be very honest. We've seen Lizelle and we've seen Laura Wolfhard play phenomenally well in the first ODI. However, no pressure placed on them. So let's just, repeat that again. That is very important. But, we've spoken at length about Lara Goodall. She needs to start scoring some runs. They need to start looking at her as someone for the future that can really cement and keep that number 4 spot together. Sinelis also, she's a good batsman, but, in the past hasn't scored huge amounts of runs. So, when you start to unpack it, that 3 and 4 can look a little bit shaky. But then you've got Mignon and Marizan coming in at sort of 5 and 6. So now then you've got a little bit more stability. So I love the sort of summation at the moment is that India want to get 1 or 2 quick wickets. If they get 1 or 2 quick wickets, and then you suddenly you've got now Marizan and Mignon at the crease within the first sort of 15 overs, South Africa are not going to be comfortable about that. And they're not going to want that, because now the pressure's definitely shifted onto Marizan and Mignon, and now they don't really have the freedom. They're going to have to consolidate the innings, and they're going to have to sort of in a way rebuild it. They won't be able to sort of play with confidence and nice, free flowing, all of that sort of thing. So I'd like to see South Africa sort of be really confident up front, but measured. So sort of confidence with measuring out the conditions, seeing what they need to do. And constructive, thoughtful innings in the second ODI.
Right then, players making their way out in the middle. We are minutes away from the first ball. Let's take final thoughts. Mamatha, final thoughts before we wrap up the show.
I think India will be definitely looking to bounce back, and that's one of the reasons they're chasing. I'll be surprised if we don't bounce back and win this game.
Boria, you have a score to predict for South Africa?
I think they'll be under 200 if there are early wickets. And I said this on our pre-show that South Africa will kickstart the campaign with a win. India will come back. I hold on to that. India will win. I think it will be a better bowling performance. Keep South Africa to 200 and under. Get early wickets, make inroads, put pressure, because the middle order has not been tested. So they will also feel the pressure. I think India will make it 1-1.
Under 200, says Boria. Your number, Claire, before we close the show.
I'm going to make it a really, really close, tight finish. So I agree with everyone so far. I think South Africa are going to try and get to 220, which is not quite going to be enough. But it's still going to be a little bit of a challenge from India because, now you're over 200. And I do think India are going to win the second one. They're going to come back, but it's going to be a tight finish.
200 and 220. That's the range we have it from here. Okay, that's it from this pre-match show of the Outside View Live, powered by Vespa and Aprilia. Remember to join us in the mid-match show. See you then.
You're late.
Don't just live life, maxify it.